Today is Tuesday, March 22nd, and today was back squats and overhead press as usual. This week being a continuation of the last 2 weeks, actually, which I don't think 2 weeks ago I did a voiceover for talking about the changes, but it's nothing huge. It's just a change in like rep/set scheme, or set x rep scheme, I suppose. Just because I feel like I was sort of hitting a wall with the weight on both the back squat and the overhead press. And so switched from, I believe, 4 sets of 5 to 3 sets of 4 on the back squat. And then I was doing 5x5s on the overhead press, but now we're doing a top triple with 4 down sets of 4. And then the accessories after are the same. So nothing too different, same exercises. Starting with the back squat today, or I guess I can talk a little bit about last week. Last week, I feel like I had a bit of a breakthrough in terms of technique. Last week and the week before. I don't know if I can call it a breakthrough, because it wasn't just like an epiphany that I had and then that fixed everything from the get-go. It's sort of been a progression of technique getting better and better from each session. And last week I felt was like really solid, because I think right around the time I was hitting a wall was when I was doing 4 sets of 5 at 315. And I remember all of those sets feeling incredibly difficult. Like I remember they felt like RP 9, RP 10. Whereas last week I hit 3 sets of 4. Obviously the volume is different, the rep scheme is different, but it felt like I had way more in the tank. So that felt really good. And I thought they looked really good as well. With like my lower back and like making sure it doesn't go into flexion, and like just positioning overall. Like I thought like overall it was pretty solid. This week was not as great as last week. I think maybe just because I am sort of putting last week's squats on a pedestal. Yeah, they're like fine. I think like the first and second set are all right. The third set, you can sort of see my knees are going a little funky. This last rep is, I think, the worst one. Just doesn't look super balanced, doesn't look just, I feel like, what it should look like. And like also like I think an indication of that was just strength wise, even though this was only like 10 pounds above what I hit last week, it did feel quite a bit harder. And so I think it's sort of, I think one thing that might have been a factor, maybe probably not as big of a factor as I'm making it out to be in my head, is the fact that I came in first thing in the morning. I have not been training in the morning for like the last 2 quarters. And so, I say the last 2 quarters, but I guess I haven't really been weightlifting that much in the last 2 quarters. But just in general, lifting, working out, I haven't done in the morning for a while. So maybe that might have been one factor, but also I think I need to just keep my cues consistent in my head. And I think the important ones are making sure my core is tight, which means like, so what that means for me is like having my spine be neutral, not overextended, because having my lower back overextended makes me not as capable of keeping my core tight. And thus when I descend, it sort of flattens out and then goes into flexion. And so starting off with a strong core and a neutral spine, and then making sure that I'm breaking at the hips and the knees at the same time when I initiate the descent. And so I think that's like sort of the most important thing that I need to keep in mind for me to like get my squats to where I want to look. And so I think that's what I'll focus on moving forward. And then, sorry, I talked over most of the overhead presses, but overhead press, I guess it's fine because I don't have too much to say. I think overhead press is coming along quite well. Today, like I pushed through all of these, and like it was getting hard towards the end just because like, it's quite a bit of volume, and like I only took like maybe a minute rest in between each set. Other than that, I thought overhead presses felt and looked pretty solid. And like no issues with the lower back either. So yeah, I mean, happy with these overhead presses. And also like I feel a lot stronger on these overhead presses than I did like 3-4 weeks ago. So progress there. And so yeah, that was it. And then did my usual accessories and then called it a day.